Okay, so welcome to Face, and thank you very much for watching. Today I'm with Peter Geffen, and we're going to talk about a big event in New York City, the 10 years anniversary of Kivunim. And when I spoke with Peter earlier during the week, I was really depressed about what's going on in the US with the presidential campaign. I was depressed with what happened in Paris. I was depressed with a lot of violence in the world. And when Peter told me the project, it really changed my mood. And thank you very much, Peter, for coming.
You're welcome.
So 10 years of Kivunim. Can you explain a little bit Kivunim very briefly and what is?
So Kivunim is a gap year program.
Okay.
Primarily, but not exclusively, for Jewish students, resident in Jerusalem for the year, but we travel out all over the world with the goal, as our motto says, to build world consciousness.
Okay.
We want these young Americans, also young American Jews, to know about the world in which we live. And ironically, the Jewish people has lived in over 50 countries of the world, in some of those places for 1,000, 2,000 years. We really have an international connection, but we no longer know our history. So we don't know about our life in Portugal and Spain and Turkey and Greece.
India, no?
In India, in India. India, by the way, where our academic teacher for our students before they travel says India is the consecration of tolerance. There has never been in 2,000 years plus anti-Semitism in India.
Wow.
People know about this, attack on the Chabad house several years ago, but this was not by Indians. This was by Pakistanis in India.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 10 years Kivunim, and you have a big event in an unbelievable context of what's happening in the world and in New York with the political election and so on and so forth.
Right. So one of the biggest stories that we have encountered as we travel is in Morocco. Jews lived in Morocco also for over 2,000 years. In fact, the king says today that the Jews are more Moroccan than the Moroccans. Because half of them were in Morocco for 1,000 years before Islam and before the Arabs came. So the story is that of the 300,000 Jews in Morocco, right at the point of the early years of the Second World War, there was obviously a danger that they would be taken and deported to concentration camps in Europe. Morocco was a French protectorate up until the beginning of the war. Now it was Vichy France, and it was a fascist government, and it began implementing anti-Jewish legislation. And the story that every Moroccan Jew over 40 and every Moroccan Muslim over 40 will tell you is that at some point in 1941, the leadership of the Vichy government came to King Mohammed V, and they said to him, "We have made 250,000 yellow stars. We want you to distribute them to all the Jews of the kingdom. You know where they are because you have a census. We're going to then move them to labor camps or deportation camps in the northern part of the country, and then we're going to ship them to concentration camps in Europe." And at this point, as the story goes, the king said, "Then you will need to make 50 more stars for the members of my family. Because there are no Jews in Morocco, there are only Moroccans, and they are all my people, they are all my subjects. If you want to start with the Jews, you start with me." And the end of this story is that not one Moroccan Jew living in Morocco, meaning almost 300,000 people, was killed during the Second World War. So
that's the background.
That's the background for the program on Sunday night. But nobody knows the story. Now imagine that. A Muslim king is responsible for protecting the Jews of the kingdom, and nobody knows the story. So that's a tragedy. And when you then consider today what we are talking about in the United States, where we have presidential candidates talking about not allowing Muslims in, throwing Muslims out, right? It's pretty clear.
It's really...
So we've decided, actually many years ago, we must find a way to make this story known. And finally, this summer, I had an idea, which was to create an award. It was Kivunim's 10th anniversary. Name this award for my two religious and social activist heroes, Martin Luther King Jr., for whom I worked in the 1960s, and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who was my inspiration for the creation of the Heschel School, and present the first of these awards posthumously to Mohammed V, to the grandfather of the present king. And I sent off a letter to Morocco, to the king, urging him to accept this award and to allow us to give it and to come to New York and accept it. And about 5 weeks ago, his senior advisor, the Honorable Azoulay, a wonderful, wonderful man, called me up and he said, the king has decided to send his sister, Her Highness Princess Lalla Hasna, to New York to accept the award, and he is sending me, Azoulay, along with her, and he is writing a special message which he wants delivered to the Kivunim students and the American public to accompany their receiving of this award. So now, all of a sudden, in the last 5 weeks... So now, in the context,
you became the rock star in New York City.
As it were. Maybe not rock star. But
it became a big issue.
And we have hundreds and hundreds of people coming to this event. We have a large number of dignitaries from the United Nations, from all the Moroccan, the embassy in Washington and the consul general here in New York and their staffs, people in the Moroccan community, Muslim and Jewish in the New York area, our own student alumni who were at this conference, who number over 250 at this conference taking place starting Saturday night and going until Monday, and some of the alumni parents, members of the broader community, and the ambassador, American ambassador to Morocco is coming. The American, we now have a United States ambassador for religious tolerance, David Saperstein. He will be on the program and speak. We have an imam coming to help chant a prayer for the memory of the king, along with the Rabbi Rolando Matalon of Congregation B'nai Jeshurun, where this event will take place.
So this is the most crazier situation. In New York, you can have the worst deflammatory discussion, and you can have the best...
but here's what I would say, David. These stories, this story in particular, needs to be told year after year, because we have to counter the violence and the fanaticism with something positive. But we've had nothing positive to say. We've kept it a secret. Now it's no longer able to be a secret.
But we have nothing to say, or we cannot get it to the media. That's my question. I mean, it's a little bit, where does the problem start? Where does the violence increase, really? Or it's the media who do...
Here's what I would say about this story that I'm telling you. And by the way, I want to emphasize, the story that I told, we have no historical evidence for. We have anthropological fact that generations of Moroccan Jews and Muslims tell this story. And everyone agrees that the king stood up to the Vichy French, resisted the imposition of anti-Jewish legislation, and certainly stood as a protector publicly for his Jewish citizens. But the story is in no textbook. It's in no newspaper article.
Nobody wrote any book on that story?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. But I've been asked to write a book, and I will absolutely begin after the new year to do so. We have an obligation, I speak here as an educator, to take a story like this and bring it to the public. And I'll tell you one other thing. There is a statement that the current king, the grandson, issued in 2009 about the Holocaust. This is a Muslim king in a world where we estimate that probably half of the Arab world are Holocaust deniers. This Muslim king wrote a statement that is probably the most powerful statement ever written by anybody about the Holocaust. And yet again, nobody knows. No one has seen it. So part of my students' job after Sunday night is to take up that challenge. And I hope we will succeed.
And you were also working with a group of students in Morocco, no? Who were starting to translate?
Extraordinary.
Extraordinary,
So there is a group of students who are our partners, really, who call themselves the Mimuna Foundation. And I won't take the time now to tell you what Mimuna is, except that it is a unique aspect of the end of the Passover holiday observed by Jews and Muslims in Morocco. So the Mimuna Foundation was created by Muslim students on the campus of Al Akhwain University in Ifran in northern Morocco to study Jewish history, Hebrew language, and Moroccan Judaism. And when you ask them why, they say because the Jews were here before we were here. And if we want to be true Moroccans, then we have to know our own story. Our own story.
Makes sense.
And they're extraordinary. And the two founders are coming to the event as well. Two now not college students, but young people.
Yes. He came in
El Mehdi Boudra will be here, and Laziza Dalil, who was one of the officers of the first founding of this group. There are now 6 or 7 chapters around Morocco, hundreds of students. And by the way, these students went with me in 2012 on a Israel study seminar. They want to see They're not closed-minded. They know who they are. These are not Uncle Toms of the Arab world. These are very loyal and patriotic members of the Arab world.
Of course.
But they want to build peace.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
want a world of nonviolence. And they want to understand the things that separate us so that we can bring ourselves much closer together.
Wow.
So they are very much a part of this story.
The last question, and then I'll let you go, Peter, because I know you're rushing. What recommendation can you give to people? My story is the violence increase is because we let it go. We are not doing our part in non-violence. So what are the recommendations, what people should be doing in their life to really not be taking in some way?
If you'll excuse my use of a seemingly religious metaphor.
Sure.
We just concluded in the Jewish community the holiday of Hanukkah.
Mm-hmm.
We light a light every night until we have 8 lights lit.
Uh-huh.
So someone wrote that you have to understand that in a world of evil, a world of darkness,
Yeah.
you don't fight darkness.
Exactly.
You just light lights.
Yeah.
And when you light enough light,
Yeah.
there is no more darkness. It can't survive. That's the metaphor we
That's
should
the
understand.
metaphor.
We have to work at telling our young people
Yeah.
and our communities
Yeah.
these stories like this, and they're all over the world.
Yeah, I know.
They're all over the world. And make them the force of what we do. And if the media doesn't want to cover
Yeah.
it, we all are involved in working in schools and with children. Those are places where we do have control over
Yeah.
what is said, what is taught, what is projected
Yeah.
into the next generation.
And
Make those
keep the
things
discussion
more
going.
and more
Yeah.
well lit,
Yeah.
and the world will diminish
Candle is-
in
very
its
nice
in its
image.
violence. Okay.
Peter, thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
For coming.
You're most
And,
welcome.
good
Thank
luck
you, and good luck to you.
Yeah, no, good luck. Thank you. I appreciate it. And this is the show for today, and you can watch more news on presenza.com, and see you soon.